Hey, what's up guys? This is Fatal Cubes here, and this is your third Java beginner programming tutorial, and in this video we will be going over the basics of if statements. To start off this tutorial, we will be looking at the challenge from the last of finding the average view per day and the average sub per day. And as you can see, I created a new comment called challenge, and underneath it I put all our challenge variables necessary for this video. So you needed a total days, which you could have set to anything. I set it up here. You could have set it down here if you wanted to. This is an integer, and the other two are going to be doubles because they can hold a decimal. Then over here under challenge again, we set it equal to the total views divided by the days and the subscribers divided by the days, with the double in parentheses in front of it to make sure that Java knows that it can be set in as a decimal. Down here we printed out a blank line. So what this does is it's going to create a blank line, and then it's going to print out challenge and some of our stats. So if you go ahead, hit F11, run it. There we go, 50 days, views per days, subs per day. And if you don't trust me, you can do the math and see if it did it right, but it did it right, so don't do that. Now let's go ahead with this tutorial on if statements. So go ahead in your default package and hit new class. In here type point game. Okay, the first thing we're going to start off by doing is creating the main function. You should be getting the hang of it now. It's the same thing every time. Give yourself some space and you're going to write variables. But we're actually only going to put one variable, so you can make it singular variable, but I don't think that really matters too much. Set it equal to whatever you want, 5,500, whatever you want to set it to. I'm just going to put mine to 5,000. Now, down here, we're going to check some things, so check different conditions of the score. So how does an if statement work? An if statement basically checks a true or false expression, and if it's true, it executes the code in the if statement. If it's false, it goes on to the else statement if there is one, or if there's no else statement, just moves on. And you'll see an example of this. So just follow along what I write and I'll explain it later. So if the score is greater than or equal to 1,000, then print out wow plus score plus total points is amazing. Alright, so just checking this out right now, you'll see that it creates another indentation, and if statements have their own curly braces. That is because if this statement here is true, this line of code is going to be executed. If I created more lines of code here, anywhere in this if statement, they'll all be executed. So if the score, right now the score is 5,000, so this would get hit and this would be executed. Okay, now we're going to write an Elsif, and I'll explain what this is. It was less than 1,000 and score is greater than or equal to 750. Let's write that there and print out. For this one, we're going to print out nice because that's not as good of a score. So we're just going to say score plus total points is pretty good. So remember, this is sort of like a fake game we're making. It's going to be, I called it the point game. It basically tells you if the amount of points you scored, you know, if it's great, if it's good, if it's pretty good, if it's okay, if it's decent, or if it's just crappy. So that's why we have to check a few different things. Okay, else if again 750, and if you guys understand what I'm doing, then just continue on yourselves. It's basically going down by 250 intervals, and we're just changing the text. This is only going to be good job. Decent. Else if again, and as you can see, if you can't already tell, the amount of else if statements you can have is as many as you want. So just keep writing it and then I'll go explain it. If score is less than 500, and score is greater than or equal to 250. System out. Alright, you basically suck at this point, and the final thing is you're gonna hit else, and there's no else if, it's just gonna be else, just like this, no parentheses, and type out system out. So this game is obviously really cruel because it makes fun of you when you get poor scores, so don't do bad and you'll be fine. Total points absolutely sucks. Alright, so let's just check out this before we move on to a bit more code, and we'll just kind of go through this. So you created this integer value called score that's set to 5,000. It's then going to go through a series of conditions. Because it starts with an if and goes else if, else if, else if, else, it's going to go down the line. It's going to check if the score is greater than or equal to 1,000, a basic inequality. It's going to print this out. Now, if it prints this out, it's not going to move on to the next thing. It's just going to exit out to about here. Else if score is less than 1,000, and this is a double ampersand, or it just means and. So when you're checking conditions, you can say and means this has to be true and this has to be true for this whole statement to be true and this to get called. So the score has to be less than 1,000 and greater than or equal to 750 for this to be printed out. If that's false, then it's going to move on to the next one. Check that, print out that, check it. Else just means if none of the above conditions were met, none of the else ifs or the if was met, it's just going to print out this last bit of code here. So if you ran this, I just hit F11. Wow, 5,000 total points is amazing. If I were to change this to, let's say, 500, you should see it should be, get right here, equal to 500. It should say print out, good job. Whoops, hit the wrong button there. F11, good job, 500 points is decent. As you can tell, if I were to put, let's say, negative points, it's going to say ha ha ha, because remember, none of these statements were true. It's going to hit this. Set this back to, let's say, 750, why not? And we're just going to print out a blank line here because we're going to do another section. And go ahead. These are more examples of if statements, different ways of writing them, some different syntax. And the reason, now this example is just kind of different ways of how to use it. You'll actually see examples of how to actually use it in like real programs. Like you generally wouldn't do this in a real program, but you will see in my future tutorials we use if statements all of the time. So let's boolean random variable, we're going to set it equal to true. Because if statements can literally just be like this. If random variable print out this variable must be true. Now you might be like, well, where's the comparing? Where is the greater than? Where is the equal to? Whatever. Where's the and signs? Why is nothing there? Because when you're checking a boolean that already has a value, either true or false, you can just say if the boolean, and it's going to say, well, if random variable is true, run this line of code. And you could do an else here that would make, if you put an else here, then it would do the line of code in the else if it was false. But another way of writing this would be if not random variable. Basically, if you have an exclamation mark, that means the opposite. So if this were to set to false, then it would say Yes, okay, so if random variable was false, it would say, well, if the opposite of false is true, kind of a strange way of putting it, this will be printed out. This is basically the opposite of this. So if this is true, this is going to be false. If this is false, this is going to be true. Because this negates it. This like flips it around. Another way of writing it could be if score does not equal 500. Again, you're going to use the exclamation mark means the opposite or not equal to, whatever you want to think of it as. You can print out your score isn't equal to 500. And the last one we're going to do is else. Alright, so if we go ahead and we're going to comment out all of these if statements because we don't want it to print that out anymore. So just put a star, a slash there, and then a slash and a star there. It'll comment out this whole block of code here. And we're just going to do, we're just going to do this bottom code. So the score is 750, which is not 500, so it's going to get to that one. So run this. And of course it says your score isn't equal to 500, which is true. And because this is set to true, it says this variable must be true. We set this to false. We set the score equal to 500. Run it. It says your score must be 500. This variable must be the opposite of true, which is true because it's false. Again, if you don't understand the logic, it's basically if the expression is true, it's going to run the if statement. If it's false, it's not going to run it. And if it's the opposite, then you just find the opposite of it. And if it comes out to be true, it's going to run the if statement. So I know I've been talking a lot about true and false, and it may be hurting your brains a bit. So I hope you understood everything correctly. And if you have any questions, just leave that in the comment section. I think that's it. The one more thing you could do is you can say if score is equal to. You need double equal sign when you want to check an expression. In other words, you can't just do if score is equal to 500. That will not work. You need to put double equal sign. And anyways, that's it for this tutorial. Let me cut away to the challenge and I'll see you guys there. Hey guys, I'm back, and for this challenge you need to make a new class, and these are the guidelines. So first of all, the input is going to be a number from 0 to 1,000 exclusive, so it cannot be 1,000. It's got to be 1 to technically 999. That's the range. And the output has to be how many digit that number is contained. You need to be able to print out how many digit that number contains. So if the input's 27, the output's going to be 2. Input's 999, output's going to be 3. Input's 1, it's going to be 1. Okay, so see you guys. I hope you learned something in this video, and see you guys in the next tutorial.